Hello and welcome. I'm KJ Burke, Principal Technology Strategist for the Hybrid Cloud at CDW. Today, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the journey to the modern data center, some of the ways that we're seeing the Canadian environments change, some of the trends, and some of the data that we're seeing globally. Before we get started, just want to let you know, attendees are going to be registered for one of four gift cards. But then also we're going to take anybody who asks a question, we're going to register them and do a drawing for a follow-up gift card, just for people to ask questions. So we'd love to make this interactive. If there are things that you see that you want to know more about, if there are things that, maybe you haven't talked to your account managers or some of our solutions architects about, but you'd like to explore a little bit more, feel free to put that in the chat. Really appreciate when we can get some good engagement. If you're thinking about a question, most likely other people are thinking about the same question. So hopefully I can explain it, but there's always supplementary information that can provide some value. So kind of dig into it. The agenda today, we're going to talk a little bit about our modernizing the data center, the campaign. We've got a series of conversations that we want to have with our customers and really help, you discover, where you are at in your maturity, identify, ways forward, ways that you can, improve the way that you're operating, maybe reevaluate some of the technologies you're using, prepare for, containers and microservices platforms, or maybe optimize some of those services with automation and orchestration as we go through some of the later webinars that we're going to do. But for today, we're going to focus on the foundation of the data center. So again, I'm going to talk a little bit about data center trends and some of the information that we're seeing globally, some of the information that's specific for Canada, the importance of edge computing and our ability to extend our data center not only to the public cloud, but also to the edge of our network where maybe we have operations that we want to do to drive business value, that maybe is a little bit different than in the past. I want to talk about that foundation and building a solid foundation. And then we want to shift into security and compliancy. And I think more and more in IT, I'm sure that you're seeing this as well. Security is really, a part of kind of everything that we're doing. One second, I just want to bring up the chat just in case I see anything pop by. So, thanks for your time today. When we look at so I sort of covered the different webinars we're going to be doing. Data center is the bedrock for innovation, the hybrid data center, composable data center, and then modern workloads in the data center. So you can kind of see what the themes are as we go through that. I appreciate your time today, and as we sort of work through this, just know that the challenges that you're having are the same challenges that a lot of people in IT are having, and then we'll talk a little bit about that and some of the ways that we can mitigate some of those things. But specifically around global trends, as we're building out and talking to customers about kind of what's coming, Canada tends to be a little more conservative with some of the ways that we approach technology. And so with that, cybersecurity and the impact of cybersecurity is relevant for us, and unfortunately it pulls us forward in some ways, because maybe we do lag in implementing some of the technologies. But again, like organizations are really starting to try to focus on how do you reduce the risk, how do you reduce the financial impact of security breaches, how do we work towards sort of a zero trust architecture, and we'll talk a little bit about that as we go through this. From an automation perspective, just doing things more efficiently. One of the challenges that I'll mention, and I think we're all aware of it, is it's getting harder to find, skilled IT people. There's a real competitiveness in the job market for people that can really come in and make an impact. And more it's about implementing systems and tools to really take on some of that workload. So automation and orchestration is definitely a theme, not only in our foundational decisions, but also as we go forward in building that composable data center. And then digital transformation. And so when we're thinking about, building this IT foundation, a lot of it is supporting digital transformation and supporting digitization of services, for the business and the organizations that we're working for. And so, one of the huge trends that came out of our cloud report is that businesses in Canada, organizations in Canada are focused on how do we deliver digitally to customers? If it was something that maybe was delivered physically previously, how do we do it in a digital manner if possible? Or how do we use digital, digitization and, process improvements or automation to deliver for our customers faster, even if it is a physical asset that we're delivering to them? So, so again, digital transformation, I know it's a buzzword, but more and more it's about, how do we as IT in the organization help the business deliver, digitally quicker and more effectively. And so I'm not going to talk about the other areas too much. Digital management, I think that's definitely key, but I don't want to, we're not going to get deep into cloud today. Although I think we do need to help manage our cloud in a consistent way across our infrastructure. Um, some of the trends that I'm focused on, and some of the things that really more and more I'm spending time talking to customers around. Again, retouch on automation, orchestration, cloud investments. There's um, you know some findings that I'll talk about on the next slide. But really just know that more organizations are investing in the public cloud. We're seeing a drop in investment in the data center, which means that we as IT experts need to focus in on, well, how do we do things more efficiently in the data center? Some of that's automation, some of that's leveraging different technologies, some of that's innovating. And then some of that's pushing back on the business to really fund within the data center what's of value. And so I think it's a little bit of all of those. We're seeing again more of an investment in DevOps and agile project methodologies, and we're seeing I'm talking internally the other day. What do DevOps and FinOps and SecOps all have in common? Well, it's ops, and so that's you, that's me, that's the IT operations, that's the infrastructure in our data center, in the cloud, and at the edge. And so more and more the operations team has become this sort of hub for services and platforms for other parts of the organization to get value. And so it's incumbent upon us to put the ops in that DevOps. Rise of the robots. An interesting article a couple months back was the world's first lung transplant was delivered by an unmanned drone in Toronto. So they had a transplant recipient, and that organ was actually sent via an unmanned drone from one hospital to the next. And so more and more the ability of the actions that we're taking as organizations to impact the physical world around us, whether that's IoT and looking at sensor data, or making changes, or SCADA networks and PLCs where we're actually making physical switching and changes. Those things um, like our systems are now starting to impact the real world, and then robots are obviously are an extension of that. And data management. So as we're talking about the foundation of building a solid foundation within our data centers, evolving our data centers and evolving what we're doing at the edge to be a better foundation. Data management is key, and it's interesting because when we talk about security, and we talk about threat hunting, which is something that we're investing more and more time in here at CDW. It always comes back to having data at the end of the day, and so data management and data resiliency is key to what we're trying to accomplish, help our customers accomplish as organizations, right? So when we look at some of the Canadian trends, we're seeing that it's difficult to hire good talents. It's difficult to retain people. Work scheduling, and everybody's kind of going through this. I kind of feel like everybody's going through a bit of a midlife crisis throughout the pandemic, where reevaluating our approach to work, and our satisfaction with what we're doing. And so retention has become challenging for some organizations, and it's really hard to hire good talent. There's a lot of competition in the marketplace. And so as the technical talent is challenging to find, finding tooling, finding automation, finding ways to reduce the mundane activities for your people and within your organization, that actually can improve their job satisfaction. It helps them pivot to more project-based work that's critical to the success of the business. And it generally is more rewarding. So there's also a big push for, anything as a service, and it's the same type of idea where we have things that are commoditized, being able to take those commodity services and have them provided to us. More and more, if it's not a service that creates business differentiation, then what we're finding is that organizations are better off, getting that as a service, leveraging things like ServiceNow or Salesforce or Office 365, or other point solutions. There's open source products for, product management and things like Get and building um, your repositories in the cloud and collaborating them. And so things that where you don't have to manage all of the components yourself. We're seeing more and more investment and more reliance of organizations on those services, because then again, it lets you take your people and focus them on business differentiation projects and areas where you can really drive value. Um, we're also seeing more analytics being pulled in, and I think it's important that we understand that, the more data we have and the more insights we can generate from that, the better decision making that we can really accomplish. And so whether that's, your financials of your cloud environment and really deciding, okay, well, do we continue with that application in the public cloud? Do we bring that back on premises, which we've seen a lot of organizations have to do for some of the applications that they moved to the cloud early on. Looking at your power consumption, looking at your environmentals at the edge of your network, and having visibility into that, because again, you need to know when there's an impact to your power. You need to know when there's impact in those rooms, because as we'll talk about it, the edge is becoming more and more important to your business and what you're trying to accomplish. And then security at all layers. And so it's always interesting because we do a lot of security services and a lot of security consulting, but where do you draw the line? And so when you look at everything from multi-factor authentication, endpoint security, SASE solutions, you start looking at data encryption, you start looking like security, in every different area that we really touch. And we do the cloud report, and one of the biggest findings is that, security is the number one concern that our customers have and organizations in Canada have regarding cloud. And so it just has become ubiquitous. No matter what you do, security is present. At the edge, what we're seeing is that, a little more than a third of organizations have data center infrastructure that exists at the edge of their network. And there's some specific use cases that I think are driving that. But I think it's important that we understand that a large percentage of organizations have infrastructure at the edge. That infrastructure is critical, and it's feeding into business processes that are either allowing the organizations to make, better decisions, or they've got workflows that have been automated, or they are using that for, manufacturing or plant control, things like that. So edge investment is key. And what we're seeing though is that the capital investment in the edge is not really changing. So even though the expectations of what we do at the edge of our network are going up, the amount of dollars being spent at the edge are not necessarily also increasing, which again means that I think we have to, do things in a different way and innovate. We have to find ways to really provide those services without increasing the overall cost to the business, which can be very challenging, right? The other thing is that over 13% of organizations have had cybersecurity incidents at the edge that have caused significant impact to the business overall. And so that's a finding that's coming out of our security study that will be coming out in June. There's a bunch of details there. It's I love to promote the security study because it's not product related. It's really just insights about the state of security and cybersecurity in the Canadian marketplace. So it's all Canada specific data. But one of the key things I pulled out of that raw data is that, the edge has become an attack vector for organizations, and bad actors have been able to leverage that edge data center as a way to infiltrate into the core data center for organizations. And so again, as we're building up this foundation, security is something that we definitely should consider. And it's not just a security role. I think it's really a role that we all share a part in. In the data center, we're actually seeing a reduction in the amount of capital investment. So even though there are, at times a higher percentage of critical applications running in the data center, as we start to take services like Exchange and move that into, SaaS services like Office 365, for instance. So we take messaging and we move it off into a SaaS model. We take some of maybe our ERP services, move them into a SaaS model, take advantage of Salesforce and ServiceNow, and what we're left with in the data center is a higher percentage of those workloads are business critical workloads. Maybe they're, again, legacy ERP systems or data lakes, or, the challenge is that organizations want to spend less in their data center. So now you and me, we're all trying to figure out, well, how do we live in this new world? Well, where we have less investment, again, that's where we have to look at, well, what types of technologies are we deploying? Are there ways to optimize our costs? Can we go with an expense model as opposed to a capital model? So I think we have to reevaluate, and I'll talk a little bit about, some of the ways that we can look and do that. We need to look at the operating model and modernize it. And so, we talk about the cloud operating model, and the one challenge I have with that is that we're also talking about that operating model, but not necessarily in the public cloud. We want to bring that to your private cloud. You want to leverage that, operating model at your edge. And so I'm trying to find a better term for it, but I would say the modern operating model, where we take the value and the self-service potential and the automation, the orchestration that we do in the cloud. We want to do that in the data center and in the co-location. We want to do that at the edge of our networks. So, and the business needs for the data center, have shifted. The expectations around, resiliency and the expectations with that subset of services that are still in the data center being, again, more of the critical systems, maybe more of the fragile systems that don't have, some of the resiliency that you can build into, services that are leveraging like microservices and containers and some of the automation that goes along with that. And so, we've shifted our focus in some ways away from the data center, but we still have these critical applications there. 80% of organizations have really had to, they've moved applications to the public cloud, and they've had to repatriate those back into the data center. And so I'll talk a little bit about, as we talk about the foundation of the data center, well, what are some of the technologies that are, our customers and organizations across Canada leveraging to make that shift back to the data center more cost effective, easier to manage, et cetera. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then overall, the complexity of the network, both in the data center and at the edge across the WAN, has gone up. When we want to do portability across, from our data center into the public cloud, again, we have to abstract some of our network services, and we have to look at, global DNS services. There's additional complexities that, maybe medium-sized organizations really haven't had to deal with. And so the complexity of the network, and then in location, the complexity of the network can go up because, again, when we look at, containers and microservices, all of a sudden the network is now part of your application. And so the network being part of the application historically has been reserved for, very, very large systems that had, multiple levels of services on multiple different hosts. And that's where the network came in. But now more and more, just the natural evolution of the way that applications are being built puts more reliance on the network. And so again, building some of that resiliency in layers and approaching that in a different way. And then just a reminder, the security study will be coming out in late June. It's a great resource. Again, it's not product focused. It's specifically insights about the Canadian marketplace. And the cloud report is up on the website there. And it's available for anybody to download. It's not a product focus. It's really just focused on the Canadian marketplace and what we're seeing. So evolution at the edge. So we're seeing some pretty significant use cases that are driving the data center, and really I would say, stretching the data center to the edge where maybe it didn't exist there before for a number of organizations. Retail, there's a lot of data analytics. There's a lot of information that retail organizations want to gather at the edge. Then there's decision making. There's data pruning. There's action that they want to take at the edge as well, which really is forcing organizations to put compute and storage services at the edge that they haven't had there before. And this is where we deal with partners like Schneider Electric and some of their solutions. We aren't going to dig in deeply today, but we do have Stephen Carty on the answering questions in chat. He's an expert around these products, but they're micro data center express and sort of smaller contained rack solutions to meet your needs. And then Smart Bunker FX is another Schneider Electric product that kind of plays in this space. So I won't talk about them too much, but just know that when you're looking for to support those environments, at the edge, there are some specialized products from both Schneider and some of our other partners that can help you be more successful. But retail is looking to do that. Smart office, again, gathering a lot of IoT data, sifting through that data, maybe running machine learning or algorithms against that data, and then bringing that back. Or maybe it's just gathering information from a bunch of different sensors around the office, sending that back to be analyzed in a public cloud or in the data center. Manufacturing. I come from a mining background, so for me, it was always SCADA systems, and those have, I think, evolved into something more with IoT. But really, gathering all of that sensor information, humidity and vibration analysis, and bringing all of that and analyzing it in real time at the edge and providing feedback to people at site is critical. So those are just a few of the examples we're seeing organizations that are causing organizations to really rely on services at the edge and get value out of services at the edge. And so those are in a lot of ways driving this extension of some of the resiliency that we would normally reserve for the data center to the edge of the networks as well. So it's this increased criticality, and as organizations invest in these processes, they become part of really what makes the business drive value. And so just know that the more of these types of projects that you engage in, the more critical that infrastructure at the edge becomes. And then that's where we have to look, okay, well, how do we invest in this? How do we create an environment that is resilient, and how do we reduce some of those costs, and have not just dollar costs, but also the hours that it takes to manage, monitor those, ensure that the health, et cetera. And then networking, again, we're increasing complexity. If for some reason, the services that you're deploying into the edge of your network are going to be, containers and container based, all of a sudden that changes what your network looks like and how, you provide services there. And so again, so as we evolve the data center to include the edge for some of these new use cases, the criticality is going to go up. Our need to support that is going to go up. We're going to have to innovate in order to stay ahead of the curve, because what we're seeing is organizations are not necessarily directing more funds to building out and maintaining the edge. So when we look at the building the foundation, where I talk to customers and where I think we need to focus is measuring maturity in a couple of different areas. So resiliency, what is our data resiliency? What is our resiliency around our applications? What is our networking resiliency? So if we know we have the data and we've protected the data, we know the applications are up and available, and we know that the network and the pathway to those applications are good, and we've layered resiliency, then from an operational perspective, we've really handled most of what we can do in that mandate. Manageability and looking at innovating the way that we provision and the way that we deploy and do configuration changes and updates and patching and things like that is critical, and really measuring that on a maturity scale. This is not like none of these metrics are well, you're at a two, and then you get to the next phase and you're done. It's really, these are all maturity, and there's different steps along the way, and we're all in this maturity journey at some point. And where I like to engage with customers, where our solutions architects engage is really, how do we get to the next area? How do we mature down these pathways a little bit further? And portability, really measuring maturity on how can we move applications around. A lot of this discussion is around like multi-cloud, public cloud, private cloud, hybrid infrastructure. Really trying to treat your data center as, it's part public cloud, it's part co-location, and it's part at the edge, and then really creating the pathways and the ability to move applications kind of to where they're needed. Observability, most of us have dealt with, things from a monitoring perspective, but monitoring tends to be a little more retroactive. And what we want to do is we want to be a little more proactive. And so as we measure our maturity and observability, it really becomes, well, how do we find those problems before they become, an incident? Or how do we gather enough data to see that there are maybe some back-end processes that are impacting our users before our users really start to notice that there's a problem there. So, and it's also, observability is focusing in on the user experience rather than, are the devices up, or what is my throughput on the network, right? And from a security perspective, it's security and layers. It's the least amount of trust and that. And then when we look at the types of technologies that we're talking to customers about, where we're seeing organizations invest in, it's focusing in on, okay, well, let's optimize our power delivery. Let's optimize the way that we are, like for instance, a couple of the Schneider products I mentioned, they can lock down the environmentals and the power in a half rack as opposed to a data room. So now again, you're optimizing your power delivery rather than maintaining an entire room at the edge. You're just maintaining what's needed at that location. The same thing with cooling and airflow. Again, being able to consolidate what you have to control, and not try and control a building or a room, but control a rack. And there's value in that. And then I think one of the things that we'll talk about later in the Schneider presentation is really optimizing your visibility into those metrics. And so data management as a way of approaching data, as opposed to, well, we do backups or we do disaster recovery. What does your data resiliency look like? Again, from a security perspective, a lot of times it comes back to, did we have an offline copy of the data? And not necessarily tape, but did we take our data and transmute it to another location where, even if the original source of data was corrupted, we're not going to corrupt or have that other set of data locked out by ransomware. So really evaluating your data management as you're looking at the foundation of this. Where's that data going? Am I transmuting it? Can I make that an indelible data store? Some of these types of questions, and really identifying technologies that can help make that a reality. Overwhelmingly, as organizations have repatriated services back from the public cloud into their co-location, we've seen most organizations invest in hyperconverged. Again, where maybe hyperconverged was a challenge because taking an existing system and replacing it was, you never had the storage and the compute and the networking all sort of come due at the same time. And so there was a challenge. Well, since those applications moved to the cloud, now they're repatriating. It's a bit of a greenfield sort of experience for a lot of organizations. And hyperconverged is overwhelmingly, what organizations have invested in, which is great because it helps make them more manageable. Things are more consistently deployed, from a physical hardware perspective, and that makes it easier to manage. It makes it easier to automate. It makes it easier to create, processes that are standardized to deal with that. So automation and orchestration tools, again, managing a configuration that you're going to mass deploy, as opposed to managing devices, is helping teams be more effective with their time. And again, it's really automating and away those mundane tasks. Taking the things that your teams aren't really excited to have to do hands-on. And okay, well, let's automate those and let's reduce the amount of errors because we tested it. We're using the same script. We're doing the same exact thing again. We're just doing it to a different device. And so being able to reuse code and reuse those configurations is really powerful. Um, Physical security measures are obviously important. Again, we talk about sort of self-contained rack systems, having the security integrated with that, having the visibility and the security integrated with that. Cybersecurity we already discussed. Virtual workspaces. I think as we've been in this work from anywhere kind of mode, we've seen more investment in services, like Windows Virtual desktops and Citrix services and things like that. So building virtual workspaces and having that virtual workspace available for the users that depend on you has become more important. SD-WAN as a way to provide better services and lower costs across the network, and building that into the foundation of your data center as you go forward is going to be a way that you can not only provide better service but also reduce the cost for the organization, which is a great win. And then gathering this data and creating insights that help you make better decisions and help the business make better decisions. FinOps is one of those things, financial ops, and the view into, well, what is our current cloud spend? What is our current data center spend? What is it costing us to run this application at the edge? Those are the types of things that we as an operations team can provide the business and then help them make better decisions, or provide a voice into those decisions and say, look, like, this workload that we move to the public cloud is costing us more, or conversely to that, this workload that we're running in our on-premises data center has the ability to scale up and scale down. We could run that in the cloud and make it more effective, financially. So financial ops and visibility into that, gathering that data, making better decisions, and having those insights to pass on to the business are going to be key in this foundational data center. So a bit of a time check. I'm going to get through this quickly. I want to hand off to Amina with Schneider here in just a second. From a security perspective, more and more what we're trying to do is align with kind of a zero trust view, and I'm going to hopefully do this justice. Ivo Weens, one of our security experts and managers of our security team, gave a talk a little while ago. And what I really liked is I like analogies and I like visualization, and so this had both. And if you think of zero trust, you're really trying to create a framework of least possible access, but still allowing to get something done. And it really is, where are the barriers and how many gates do you have that somebody has to get through? And so in this example here, you've got a villa. My house is not like this, but this is a great floor plan. I hope all of you have layouts like this in your homes. But really with this, it's, do you provide access to the pool? Do you provide access to the terrace? Are there locks on all the doors? And when we look at this, a lot of times we'll be, okay, well, great. Well, we gave them a garage door opener, so maybe they could, get to the lawnmower because they need to borrow, or a neighbor needs to borrow it. Well, does that give them access to other parts of the house? And so, a lot of our foundational data centers are sort of built with this model in mind, where, okay, well, we're going to give access to the terrace, but I didn't realize that the door to the dining room was also available, or the slider was available to open. And so, they become very complex, and it's very specialized, and each room is treated differently. And that can be really challenging, not just to manage, but also for compliances purposes, because everything is unique and everything is different. Everything needs to be tracked in a unique and different way. And when you compare that to, a hotel or a condo, these rooms are going to look very similar. They're going to have very similar capabilities. I have a key. I've got a key that opens, one room, and what I have access to is again is identical to most of the other rooms. There may be the occasional suite, but that's going to be the exception rather than the rule. So in this situation, we've locked it down. I've got access to the hallway. I've got access to my room, and I don't have access to anything else. So when we think of security and we're securing our data center, how can we create ways to make things simpler? How can we create ways to support our security teams by really, having things be repeatable? And some of this is through automation, and managing by code as opposed to managing devices individually. We're managing deployments that are being done in a prescriptive way the same time every time. So I'm running out of time, but I just want to, like, again, I think security is something that's important to all of us. And so I just wanted to touch on that. And the last thing I have for you is, well, where can CDW help? Well, we have an approach where we like to talk to customers, ideate. Let's talk about what your objectives are, work through assessments, help you architect a solution for that, implement that, and then we have the ability to operate that afterwards. If it's something that you're interested in. So assessments and planning services around the data center, around application assessments. Can an application be moved to the cloud? What does that profile look like? What do those costs look like? Should something stay in your data center, be retained in your data center? Maybe use different technologies for that. Assessments around power, security assessments, risk advisory assessments, penetration assessments. Those are all things that we have services for. Pre-sales architecture. If you have areas of this that you want to talk to one of our solutions architects about, talk to your account manager or talk to your account executive. We love to engage on that. We've got a huge pre-sales team. It's not a team that we charge for. It's a team that's available for you as a customer to help sort of build up those ideas, approach the best practices. We're independent. We have opinions about technologies, but we are technology independent. So if you're looking to compare a couple of different technologies, you want to know, well, what are the pros, what are the cons, how do they relate to each other, and how do they relate to your environment? That's where our pre-sales team can come in and help. Services and delivery. We've got professional services, consulting. We've got the ability to find staff augmentation. So if you have a role that you need filled for a period of time, whether that's because you've had somebody that's left, or you've got a role that's just for a project, we have the ability to do that. And then as a services and managed services. So this is we have some prescriptive services we offer, but we also have customized managed services where we do 24 by 7 management of environments and updates for customers and all of that. So I didn't see any questions in chat, but if you have anything for me, I'm happy to answer that. Feel free to talk to your account managers and engage. And you really appreciate your time today. And Amina, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing, and then I'll pass it over to you. Really appreciate Snyder's involvement on this as well. And again, I think you've got a really interesting presentation that's going to speak to some of the points that I was talking about.
Awesome, thank you, KJ. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Amina El-Tabai, and I'm the software. First of all, can everybody see my screen?
I'm seeing it. It looks good, and it's full screen.
Perfect. So as I was saying, I'm the software sales manager for Secure Power Canada. I work alongside Sarah and Spencer to help position software opportunities. Been with the company for a little over 4 years now, and I moved from the channel role to the software role at the beginning of 2022. So I'm really happy to be able to connect with everyone and be able to talk to a little bit more about our software and our different offerings for digital. Sorry about that. So I think it's fair to say that, and this is a good segue to what KJ was talking about earlier, that there can be no discussion if data center environment is changing. We now
Amina,
have...
sorry, Amina, we lost your screen share.
Oh. Okay, let's do this again. I don't know what I did there.
Okay, looks like it's starting to share. Yep.
Okay.
There you go, perfect.
Perfect. So as I was saying, I think it's fair to say that there can be no discussion if data center environments are changing. We now have the cloud, we have the edge, and hence we have hybrid IT. we recognize that the introductions of these three relatively new forces are the driving new requirements for our system. And we see more data centers everywhere in all possible sizes. KJ was mentioning that before, which brings more management needs and new security challenges. We also recognize that new technologies available to us, like big data, cloud analytics, artificial intelligence, et cetera, can solve many of our customers' problems that we see emerging, and some that have been around for quite some time, actually. Like KJ was mentioning as well, in Canada, we're a little bit behind in that aspect. And this is where we haven't been able to solve with these legacy technologies. And we also recognize that the improvement we've seen over the last 10 years in data center design, there's 80% more efficient and half the cost. So it's unlikely to continue without rethinking our approach and embrace a broader ecosystem. The complexity is increasing, but the staffing resources are not. And obviously we've experienced that a lot over the past couple of years. I was just at an event last week, and that was the main topic of conversation among all of the attendees, the lack of staffing and the lack of resources. So this drives the need for more efficient operations, for which speed deployment is critical. New automation and analytical tools need to take all physical resources into account, both IT and critical facilities, cloud, converged systems, and software-defined initiatives create catalysts for these reviewing and replacing existing tools. And those tools will support staffing and help them balance their work life while handling an emerging complexity. So let me show you how we see the world of compute. We see large centralized data centers where you will see, large deployment, three-phase UPSs, cooling, environmental. And historically, these have been the workhorses for applications. And this appears to continuously be the case. However, we're also starting to see smaller but more powerful data centers located in urban areas closer to consumers. Like KJ was mentioning, retail. I was actually at a mining company in Saskatchewan a couple of weeks ago, and they have a requirement for a local edge. So we're seeing smaller but more powerful data centers and to the consumers, which is able to provide relatively heavy computing capabilities. It's often used for streaming and caching. And finally, there's the local edge, which right now is booming, given the latency and uptime needs. And this is where you think of it when you want, for instance, you want to watch a movie on the airplane or you're at the ATM. I'm sure you're no longer accepting to wait for IT systems to go up. There's no time right now. Time is of an essence right now. So you can say that we've entered the era of always making your customer happy, and we don't want to waste our time. And IT staff, they're managing a lot of components, a lot of assets. They're not focused on power. They have multiple things that they need to manage, and their main focus is not cooling or electrical, and they probably don't even have the experience. So when we're thinking about our services team, as they do mechanical and electrical work, the IT staff can be replaced by infrastructure staff or facility staff. And we've had many conversations with analysts, firms, and customers over the last few years. And the four consistent challenges that keep, coming up as the top topics are: how do we prevent downtime? The lack of remote monitoring and management, the lack of resources, management of multiple vendors, like I mentioned, and the large number of IT sites of sites with, limited staff. We're seeing that increase a lot lately. And this is where we come in, and I will introduce you to our centralized monitoring software, EcoStruxure IT. By the way, I don't know who's managing the questions in the chat. Sarah, if you see anything that needs to be raised, please let me know.
Will do, Amina. I'm just responding now.
Okay, great. So our goal here is to bring together power and cooling and environmental monitoring with the physical layer equipment that we all know so well. So if you look at this stack of products, you can kind of envision this almost as a pyramid. And our theory to this software is not an all or nothing approach. Customers take what they need. The bottom layer here is our monitoring software, whether it's cloud-based or our on-premise, and they don't have to, use everything. So our first layer, our IT expert, which is our cloud-based monitoring software, is our centralized monitoring software that is vendor neutral. It's highly scalable, very quick to deploy, and cyber secure. And we also are, cognizant of the fact that a lot of customers, especially in Canada, have data residency concerns. So we still have our data center expert, which is our on-premise software. It has the same monitoring capabilities of IT experts, but it is sitting on the local network of the customer and not outside of their network. So, when we're talking about monitoring, we're really focused on power, cooling, and environmentals of those critical spaces, IDF, MDF, and data centers. But what we've done is make it really interesting. Obviously, you would expect us to be very friendly with APC and Schneider Electric products, which we are, but it will take us seconds to discover a device, third-party device, and be able to monitor it. And we bring, obviously the same experience, not all the same capabilities, such as mass firmware updates and configurations, but we still can provide a high level of monitoring to third-party UPS's power, cooling, PDU systems, and we bring the same plug-and-play capability. So both of kind of parallel offerings, and this enables customers to take a very easy-to-use platform, easy to deploy, and easy to manage, and that's the kind of plug-and-play and auto-discover that we offer to their power and cooling equipment. Are there any questions in the chat? I see or I should just keep going?
Nothing specific to you, Amina. Sorry.
Okay, great. So we communicate, or we can monitor through SNMP and Modbus, and we have thousands of DDF files in our data lake that have already been created. So we have customers, for instance, working with a customer that has third-party PDUs that are manufactured in Asia, and they needed us to have them communicate with our software, and we can custom create DDF files specific to a specific product and be able to communicate it with our monitoring software. So once customers are comfortable with the monitoring layer, let's say a customer has smart power strips in their data center, which is very common. And once they have that data into our monitoring platforms, then they can look at a monitoring platform that we call IT Advisor, which is the second layer. And IT Advisor is really a planning and modeling platform, and it has access to all of this live power and cooling data now that we've gathered all the tools, and we're able to go in and plan what server goes where in the rack. And KJ had mentioned that earlier during his presentation. So we have a default catalog of hundreds of thousands of different pieces of equipment with all servers, for example. We know how much they weigh, the use space that they can take up to, the voltage requirements, the power consumptions, and so forth. So this allows customers to go through and build out their sites and overlay live power and cooling data and do things like, I need to add 5 servers, so show me the best place, taking power and cooling into consideration. So it's really about capacity planning and operating a data center. And we also have the ability to fold in data from things like ILOs and iDRACs. So you can go beyond power and power strip level and see power at the server level. So that's what the idea is. We take data from the power and cooling side, marry it together with data from the IT side, and provide customers a full picture of their data centers. And then obviously all of the organic relationships are there. We can do the, alarm in a rack or from a piece of power equipment. They know what servers are impacted. They know what virtual machines are on those servers. So that's really the kind of high level view here of the common paths that we take customers down. So our monitoring platform, like I mentioned earlier, it could be on-premise or cloud-based. Data Center Expert is the on-premise version, and it's kind of what you would expect on an on-prem solution. And there could be a virtual machine or a hardware appliance running somewhere in a data center, and it's monitoring everything, and it never goes outside of their firewall. On the other hand, our cloud-based monitoring solution, which is our EcoStruxure IT software, is a little bit different. And we've done this to really architect it to securely allow customers to connect to our cloud. So we have a free software gateway, which is our EcoStruxure IT gateway. And this platform, it runs in an executable or on a Windows or a Linux server or workstation in the data center. And that's usually the customer with provision. So this is what we speak SNMP or Modbus. And the devices, it is encrypted, and it uses a one-way SSL pump outbound only into the cloud. So nothing is going back into the network, and it's purely secure. And so no ports are back at all into the network. None of their devices are touching the cloud. We're just communicating through SNMP or Modbus. It's just really the gateway itself. And the cool thing about the cloud approach is that it's very secure, like I said. Most IT security groups are pretty comfortable with this. And the other piece is how flexible it is. So you can put an IT gateway anywhere you need to globally because it is centralized monitoring. So we have customers that are global that have multiple locations, and they can have the gateway deployed somewhere in Europe, but they're monitoring their equipment here in North America or vice versa. There's no cost for additional gateway, and we don't charge for the actual software gateway. It's customers pay for the licenses depending on how many devices they're looking to monitor. So let's say they have 100 devices that they're looking to monitor, they would buy 100 licenses, and it is scalable. On one IT gateway, they can have up to 2,500 devices. And that's really the kind of, yeah.
Sorry, while you're talking about this particular piece, there is a question in the chat asking, do vulnerability scanners, are vulnerability scanners able to detect any firmware vulnerabilities in APC products? I don't believe so, but I wanted to run the question by you.
Are we able to monitor, firmware vulnerabilities?
vulnerability scanners, are they able to detect any firmware vulnerabilities in APC products?
Yeah, so we can actually, we do have a security setting in the software, and I can actually go ahead and share my screen and show you the web application for EcoStruxure IT, and we can go over that security aspect. But yes, it does offer recommendations for security and for firmware updates. And the good thing about it is that you can do mass firmware updates for APC products. I hope that answered the question.
I think so. It's from Brian Brad. So if we need to tie out just due to time today with him afterwards, we can certainly do that.
Yeah, I see we only have like a few minutes left. So.
No, he says
okay.
Thanks. Okay, great.
Okay, perfect,
and
perfect.
Just before you go on, I know we might run out of time today. If anyone on the call would like a live demonstration or additional information on the topics that Amina is covering today, please don't hesitate to reach out to your CDW AM who has our contact information, and we would be happy to set something up for you outside of this call afterwards.
Yeah, we offer demos all the time. Sarah, Spencer, and I, we set up calls with end users, and we go through the software and we show them all of the different capabilities. And we've actually had customers send out a purchase order right after the call. So that was pretty cool. It happened last week. And so we have all of the resources available to you. Like, feel free to reach out to us. The last thing I could probably mention, because I see we're running out of time, is we do offer a free trial of the software. Customers would just have to download the EcoStruxure IT Gateway, and we offer a 30-day free trial if they need and it's not limited. They don't get a watered-down version of the software. They get the full version, and they're able to do their discovery and get their power assessments. We've had multiple customers download the free trial, get a report, show it to their managers, and use that as a way to let their managers know that or purchasing that they absolutely need this in their environment. So feel free to reach out to us if you need information on how to get that free trial set up for your customers. So I won't go too much into this, only because I see that we are running out of time. What we do also offer is our monitoring and dispatch service. Some customers, don't have the capability or the resources to do the monitoring themselves. They want somebody else monitoring it for them. So we have different ways of going about it, whether the customer monitors and we dispatch, or if we have managed service provider, they would do the monitoring and dispatch. Whatever the customer needs, we're able to work together with them. They might not have the resources because they have a location that's remote, and we have our own certified technicians everywhere, so we're able to dispatch our own technicians. So that's another aspect that you can offer. A lot of customers, or actually Sarah or Spencer, when they're working on an opportunity, instead of offering an extended warranty, for instance, they can offer monitoring and dispatch, because that covers the entire UPS during that coverage period. And anything happens during that coverage period, we will dispatch a technician to go in and do a replacement next business day. So for time's sake, I see that it's already 3 o'clock, unless you guys wanted me to continue. But yeah, that's pretty much what I wanted to cover for you guys today. If we had more time, we could have probably gone into the live demo itself of EcoStruxure IT, but now that we've connected, please feel free to reach out to me or Sarah or Spencer anytime and let us know if customers are interested or you're looking for questions on how to position our software. Feel free to reach out to us.
Yeah, thanks, Amina. Yeah, definitely. It's always hard to pack everything into the time. But no, I think the message is really good. I do think that, you know, the EcoStructure services and the way that it's framed will help take load off of teams. And I think that's one of the biggest trends we're seeing is where our customers can take advantage of a service as opposed to do it themselves. You know, that's going to be critical. And then you're still sharing, just so you know.
I
But
know,
yeah,
I'm sure.
you know, all the customers on the call really appreciate your time today. You know, the Schneider team would love to engage. You know, reach out to your account managers. I mentioned Stephen Cardy in the chat there. He's a rock star. You know, again, we have solutions architects that can help. You know, help you ideate, look at what your business requirements are, and then come up with a solution that can meet your needs. And so we can also do things productized. So if we build a packaged offering, you can then just order that as a SKU. So if you have a, you know, half rack of equipment that you need to deploy to a number of different sites, you know, we can get the exact same gear, you know, deployed in the exact same way, you know, across those locations. Yep. Thanks again. Really appreciate it. And, you know, like I said, feel free to reach out and engage on this or, you know, anything around security. Just let us know.
Awesome. Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Amina.
Bye.